Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Blair, or the Illuminati, and today we're talking about something that I had no idea existed until my Dr. Oz video, the olive oil / agro mafia. And I know this sounds absolutely insane, but it's actually a thing. I'm pretty sure I saw it in a comment somewhere in the Dr. Oz video, but I can't quite remember. If I see the comment, I'll make sure it's posted here in the video. But anyway, Dr. Oz went around making claims about how most olive oil in supermarkets were fake, and so I kind of had to look into that after I saw a couple comments about a supposed olive oil mafia. And my god, it's incredibly interesting. So I kind of thought some of you guys were honestly just messing with me, but this is one hell of a wild ride, and I can't wait to share this with you. So let's dive right in and start with how this whole mess began. Alright, so to start with, a large percentage of olive oil that's in grocery stores isn't necessarily fake olive oil, but a blend, misleading or adulterated. There is a huge difference between saying something isn't real, as Dr. Oz said, who just isn't really a good source of information to begin with, and explaining the reality of what the real situation is. It is partly olive oil, but it just doesn't come from where you think it does, and there's other oils in there with it. A lot of olive oil claims to be from Italy, labeled as Italian extra virgin olive oil, but it comes from somewhere else. It could be from Syria, Turkey, Morocco, Tunisia, etc. Dr. Oz wasn't necessarily wrong for wanting to speak out about olive oil. I just think he went about it the wrong way and it wasn't great, and again, given his shady past, it's no surprise a lot of people wouldn't take him seriously. But there is actually something to be said about this market. And I will do what Dr. Oz clearly failed to do, inform his audience. Now, a lot of my sources do use the word fake when they're talking about the olive oil in question, and I mean, I get why, but I wanted to give a little bit of background to explain that it's not as if they're using dangerous chemicals in replacement of olive oil. I know that for me, if someone says fake cosmetics, I think of the knockoff market and all that lead, mercury, and other strange ingredients. But anyway, the mafia. How the hell do they factor into this? Well, in a 2007 issue of the New Yorker magazine, Tom Mueller wrote that corruption in the olive oil industry has been happening since the 90s, at least. On August 10, 1991, a rusty tanker called the Mazel II docked at the industrial port of Ordu in Turkey and pumped 2,200 tons of hazelnut oil into its hold. The ship then embarked on a meandering voyage through the Mediterranean and the North Sea. By September 21st, when the Mazel II reached Barletta, a port in Puglia in southern Italy, its cargo had become, on the ship's official documents, Greek olive oil. It slipped through customs, possibly with the connivance of an official, was piped into tanker trucks, and was delivered to the refinery in Riolio, an Italian olive oil producer based in Barletta. There it was sold, in some instances blended with real olive oil, to Riolio customers. Between August and November of 1991, the Mazel II and another tanker, the Caterina T, delivered nearly 10,000 tons of Turkish hazelnut oil and Argentinian sunflower seed oil to Riolio, all identified as Greek olive oil. Riolio's owner, Domenico Ribatti, grew rich from the bogus oil, assembling substantial real estate holdings, including a former department store in Bari. He bribed two officials, one with cash, the other with cartons of olive oil, and made trips to Rome, where he stayed at the Grand Hotel and met with other unscrupulous olive oil producers from Italy and abroad. As one of Italy's leading importers of olive oil, Ribatti's company was a member of Acetal, the company's powerful olive oil trade association, and Ribatti had enough clout in Rome to ask a favor: preferential treatment of an associate's nephew who was seeking admission to a military officer's school of a high-ranking official at the finance ministry, a fellow Pugliese. The rest of this starts to play out like a crime boss movie. Like, seriously, we've got Swiss bank accounts and shell companies, agents of the anti-fraud office, and this olive oil wasn't just going to a few supermarkets or an unknown little grocery shop either. Surprise, surprise, they went to some of the largest producers of Italian olive oil in the world, including our favorite company, Nestle. And I don't know, like, why does it seem so predictable that Nestle would be on this list? I mean, they've gotten thousands of infants sick with kidney stones, so I guess this is just like an average day, right? Not even a scandal worth mentioning. Anyway, Tom continues and wrote, In 1997 and 1998, olive oil was the most adulterated agricultural product in the European Union, prompting the EU's anti-fraud office to establish an olive oil task force. Profits were comparable to cocaine trafficking with none of the risks, one investigator told me. The EU also began phasing out subsidies for olive oil producers and bottlers in an effort to reduce crime, and after a few years it disbanded the task force. Yet, fraud remains a major international problem. Olive oil is far more valuable than other vegetable oils, but it is costly and time-consuming to produce, and surprisingly easy to doctor. Adulteration is especially common in Italy, the world's leading importer, consumer, and exporter of olive oil. For the past 10 years, Spain has produced more oil than Italy, but much of it is shipped to Italy for packaging and is sold legally as Italian oil. The vast majority of frauds uncovered in the food and beverage sector involve this product, said Colonel Leopoldo Maria Di Filippi, the commander for the northern half of Italy and the NAS Carabinieri, an anti-adulteration group run under the auspices of Ministry of Health, told me. So, there seriously was an olive oil task force. On one level, this sounds kind of funny because of just how ridiculous it seems. Did this actually have to be a thing? Its profits were similar to cocaine trafficking? I might have to be getting trolled, really hard right now because it almost sounds too funny to be true. But yeah, seriously, fraud when it comes to olive oil has been a giant fucking problem for a while now, and who knew? Not me, obviously, but now I do. In Puglia, Italy, where around 40% of Italy's olives are grown, thousands of the producers are victims of this market. And the Italian government, at least at the time the New Yorker published this article, has been no help. They have consistently encouraged quantity over quality to the benefit of large companies that sell bulk oil. So unfortunately, to some extent, I can see why. I don't know about any of you, but if I use olive oil, it's mainly for cooking. I don't think it's reaching to assume that someone might spend a little extra for some premium quality, fresh seafood or vegetables or fruits before they realize that the quality of the olive oil or the butter or those ingredients may have been compromised. And if I had to choose between expensive, high-quality olive oil that's going to go in a salad and the ingredients of the salad itself, I'm probably going to go with what's in the salad. And again, maybe that's just me, but I can see why this isn't on most people's radars. As for where this can go so wrong and get harmful, that has to do with the extra virgin olive oil standards. According to the EU law, extra virgin oil must be made exclusively by physical means by a press or a centrifuge and meet 32 chemical requirements, including having free acidity of no more than 0.8%. In olive oil, free acidity is an indicator of decomposition. Virgin oil, the next grade lower, must have free acidity of no more than 2%. Oil that has a greater percentage of free acidity is classified as lampante. Most olive oil frauds are easy to detect using chemical tests. In February 2005, the NAS Carabinieri broke up a criminal ring operating in several regions of Italy and confiscated 100,000 liters of fake olive oil with a street value of 6 million euros, about $8 million. The ring, which allegedly sold its products in northern Italy and in Germany, is accused of coloring low-grade soy oil and canola oil with industrial chlorophyll, flavoring it with beta-carotene, and packaging it as extra virgin olive oil in tins and bottles emblazoned with pictures of Italian flags or Mount Vesuvius and with folksy names of imaginary producers, the farmhouse, the ancient milestones. I won't pretend to understand how olive oil is made in its entirety, but the point is that there have been several attempts made by the International Olive Oil Council, an office created by the UN itself to enforce regulations. Flavored soy oil and canola oil may not be the poisonous chemicals we've seen in some products on this channel, but it's not what a consumer is asking for or thinks they're buying when they pick up olive oil at the grocery store. This becomes particularly relevant if someone is actually allergic to soy or canola or whatever oil replacement they're using. They don't expect that to be in there because it's not supposed to be in there. Like I'll admit earlier though, I thought Dr. Oz was entirely bullshitting us when he had a professional olive oil taste tester come on his show, but they do in fact exist, and the taste really is taken into account by Italian authorities. The Italian mafia that does this, or the agro-mafia as they're called, do get caught at times. In Bari, Italy, the District Anti-Mafia Directorate seized 7,000 tons of counterfeit olive oil in 2015. When the OCCRP, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, reported about it the next year, they said they spoke to Tom Mueller, the same investigative reporter that wrote the articles featured in The New Yorker. In certain areas, he said, the mafia has really infiltrated the entire food chain from farm to fork. It's insane how often this happens and how high the profit margins can really get. For example, let's say I wanted to buy some olive oil at the grocery store, reasonably priced. I'm just picking from a random brand I've seen, Filippo Berio. It's $12.49 for 1.5 liters or 50.7 fluid ounces. Now, bear with me, this is going to get slightly mathematical. If I convert fluid ounces to tons, there's 32,000 ounces in a ton. So there's 224 million ounces in 7,000 tons. I never liked math, so if I'm wrong, you can yell at me in the comments. It was never my forte. So if we divide the 224 million by 50.7, that means that there's over 4.4 million bottles worth or over $40 million worth of product that was seized on that one single occasion. Canola oil that's almost the same amount from a grocery store is less than $2. So 4.4 million bottles times $2 would be 8 million, around a fifth of what olive oil sells for. I'm not saying that the counterfeit products are entirely canola oil, it's a blend, but there's an opportunity for profit and it's clearly being exploited. And again, my issue isn't with blends existing. Cheaper options are great to have, especially for low-income households. Plus, given the opportunity between an inexpensive blend and the real, more expensive deal, some people may go with the former, and that's absolutely fine. My issue is the shady marketing and how many of these blends are being presented and who the hell is actually making them. And worse yet, the way that these gangs operate. According to Reuters, besides counterfeiting products, gangs make money seizing control of farmland and firms, fixing prices, controlling distribution, and through labor exploitation, studies say. In 2015, crime groups forced more than 100,000 Italians and immigrants to work long hours for little pay in fields across the country, according to a report by Italian General Confederation of Labor Union. Police said they found no evidence of labor exploitation linked to the fake olive oil scheme, which saw at least 10 tons of low-quality oil, in some cases past sell-by date, sent to the United States. It costs about a tenth of the Italian-made extra virgin variety, which sells at about €10 a liter, according to David Granieri, the head of Italian Olive Growers Association Uniprol. Granieri said counterfeit food products posed health risks as they might contain allergens not indicated on the label and damage the reputation of Italian delicacies. Honest producers who rely on a perception of luxury to sell at higher prices abroad also suffered from cheap, fake products at a time of low oil production, he added. They, the crime groups, are drugging the system, he told the Thomson Reuters Foundation by phone. It sounds like the police and the labor union aren't in agreement on the labor exploitation issue, but again, this explains the real harm that can be done. Blends, cheaper options, all of that's not a huge deal, but when other oils are marketed as olive oil, it puts those who have specific allergies at risk. As for the labor exploitation factor, the Interpress service reported a couple years ago that the issues with the agro mafia and the caporalato went beyond olive oil. The caporalato is an illegal form of recruitment in the workforce. The IPS said in Italy, over 400,000 agricultural laborers risk being illegally employed by mafia-like organizations, and more than 132,000 work in extremely vulnerable conditions, enduring high occupational suffering, warns the fourth report on agromafia and caporalato. The report, released this July by the Italian Trade Union for Farmers and the research institute Osservatorio Placido Risotto, sheds light on a bitter reality that is defined by the report itself as modern-day slavery. The criminal industry is estimated to generate almost €5 billion. The phenomenon of caporalato is a cancer for the entire community, Roberto Iovano from Osservatorio Placido Risotto told IPS. Legal and illegal activities often intertwine in the agro-food sector, and it ultimately becomes very difficult to know who is operating in the law and who is not. They then go on to explain that these illegal activities are present among harvesting Sicilian tomatoes to salads to the grape harvest in wines to strawberries. The salaries of these exploited workers are often 50% lower than one outlined by the National Contract for Farmers. They often work between 8 to 14 hours a day and 7 days a week. Some workers reported that they were paid only €1 per hour and they had to pay €1.5 for a small bottle of water, €5 for the transportation to reach the field, and €3 for a sandwich at lunchtime each day. Day laborers are also required to pay between €100 to €200 for rent, often in abandoned, crumbling facilities or in remote or less frequented hotels. The money was paid to the caporale or supervisor. Those people are not naive at all, one of the workers told the trade union's researchers. They know the laws, they find ways of counterfeiting work contracts and mechanisms to circumvent the National Social Security Institute. The institute is the largest social security and welfare institute in Italy. The caporali are not just Italians, but Romanians, Bulgarians, Moroccans, and Pakistanis who manage their own criminal and recruiting organizations. The report warns that recruitment not only takes place in Italy, but also in the home countries of migrants like Morocco or Pakistan. In 2017, out of 1 million laborers, 286,940,000 were migrants. It is also estimated that there are an additional 220,000 foreigners who are not registered. African migrants also reportedly receive a lower remuneration than that paid to workers of other nationalities. These victims of agro-mafia live in a continuous state of vulnerability, unable to reclaim their rights. The report points out that some workers have had their documents confiscated by the caporali for the ultimate purpose of trapping the laborers. It also highlights the testimonies of abuse ranging from physical violence, rape, and intimidation. One Afghan migrant who asked to be paid after months without receiving any pay said that he had been beaten up because of his protests. The migrants, seeing as they are the most vulnerable, are clearly being taken advantage of. There's even reports of many women in the countryside facing sexual violence from these caporali or being threatened that their drinking water would be taken away. Now, I know some of you might be wondering, what the hell does this have to do with the olive oil mafia, since we haven't mentioned olive oil in a bit here. But this is the agro-mafia, the same people that have these supervisors or corporals under them. It's not as if this mafia just fucks with olive oil and then calls it a day. They have their hand in so many different types of farms. That's why it's called the agro-mafia, not just the oil mafia. It does seem laughable when you hear the olive oil mafia and think of a group of people in suits passing one fancy bottle of olive oil in some shady back alley, but that's so far from the reality of how deep this goes and the damage these people have done to the communities they live in. 1 month in 2018, 16 migrant workers died in Foggia, Italy, which hosts half a dozen makeshift camps for illegal workers, and both accidents involved overcrowded vans carrying migrant workers home from long shifts in the region's tomato fields. These workers are treated as dispensable by the caporali within the agro-mafia. Vice says they act as middlemen in the $3.5 billion tomato industry, where migrants can earn less than $30 for a shift that's 15 hours in scorching heat. It's been called the return of slavery, and the laws to criminalize the caporali are only now being enforced. Although the mafia infiltration runs deep, there are some pockets of resistance. Activist Vincenzo Linorello founded Goel in 2003, an association of 30 organic mafia-free farms. The produce might be a little more expensive, but at least it's worth knowing that mafia members and labor exploitation had no part in it. Restaurants, farms, even pub owners have been extorted and taken advantage of by the mafia in Italy, but hearing activists speak out gives me some hope that it doesn't always have to be this way. In Palermo, a group of graduates who wanted to open a pub were shocked to learn they would be expected to pay protection money, or piso. In defiance, they founded Adipiso, Goodbye Piso, an organization that supports businesses resisting extortion threats. Activist Danielle Marinano says, "We flyered a whole neighborhood with leaflets saying, 'A people that pays piso is a people without dignity.'" As we have clearly seen, this is actually a gigantic issue. There's enough information on olive oil alone for Tom Mueller to have written a book about the thing. However, most of the articles I've found, even from a website called Olive Oil Times, barely scratch the surface of what's really happening in these Italian countrysides. Even if the most common problem with consuming the comprised oil means just lower quality, there are still allergy dangers and problems with the mafia controlling it. So why don't people speak out more often? This affects tons of food, billions of dollars worth of crops, and so why is this underreported? Well, if I had to guess, I'd say there's a number of factors at play, with one of the most prevalent being fear. There's an estimated 600,000 undocumented migrants, mostly from African countries, that are susceptible to falling prey to such exploitation, in the agricultural minister, Teresa Bellanova's words. It's easy for the mafia to take advantage of these people. They need work, they have nowhere else to go, they may not have anyone to turn to, and they may not be educated enough to be aware of their rights when they emigrate. If they speak out, obviously they'd lose their job, maybe worse. This could be the only option they have to build a better life. Dr. Oz and CBS seem to focus on the olive oil aspect because it's the most obviously tampered with. You can't really prove that a tomato has been grown under horrible labor conditions from the taste, you know? 60 Minutes from CBS did a mini documentary about the subject, focusing on the olive oil section a few years ago, bringing the topic into mainstream media in a much more detailed way than Dr. Oz could ever imagine. They explain that, obviously, the mafia hates attention, so that's why they wouldn't include anything poisonous in there. Then go on to say that when you purchase olive oil, you should look at the expiration dates and look for where it was pressed. Olive oil is comparable to fruit juice in terms of how long it'll last, they explain, so it shouldn't be old, and the bottle should say a specific area in Italy, not just plain made in Italy. And of course, there's the price. If you're paying $7 or $8, it's probably not the real deal. Again, you can go online and find the best brands, websites, and lists that go into more detail about which bottle to buy. And although this is all well and good, it almost annoys me to hear this 60-minute segment mention the mafia just a few times and spend far more time on searching for the best olive oil for your home. And sure, I'll absolutely spend a few extra dollars if I can afford to, especially if it means not supporting the agro-mafia. But the mafia is barely mentioned. Like, shouldn't exposing this be like one of the big sources and one of the big messages here? Like, preventing buying from them is great, sure, but the agro-mafia does so much more than just affect the taste of olive oil, and it's kind of time we started recognizing that and questioning where our food comes from. As silly as it seems, watching a panel of people slurp on olive oil, it's also pretty frustrating that it's had to come to this, that food fraud is this prevalent. So after reading all of this, I'm absolutely going to do my best to try and buy higher quality olive oil when I can. Not because I care so much about the flavor and taste, but because I know it's avoiding giving the agro-mafia my money, and that seems worth it to me. It just saddens me that there's so many aspects of produce, especially the produce in Italy, that the mafia has their hands all over. I'm thrilled to see the resistance and laws being enacted, and I hope they are enforced and that it continues. Attention on these topics can't hurt, so I hope this brings some awareness to how badly the Italian mafia has their clutches on wine, olive oil, tomatoes, among many, many other produce being farmed by mistreated migrants. So with that being said, that's where I'm going to end today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want more content from me, you can pop open my description box. You'll find a variety of links for my social media accounts, shops, other YouTube channels I work with, and so on and so forth. So again, guys, thank you so much for making it to another video. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys!